I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're thrilled to introduce you to Corey B. Collins. He's an author who's written a powerful book that's called The Thanks You Get. It is a gripping novel that delves into the depths of human behavior and the essence of moral choices. Join us right now as we explore the twists, turns in the lives of Hank Goodman, Benjamin Beasley, and Sonia Sanitaria on their quest entwined with family ties, mysteries, and the fundamental question of what it means to do the right thing. We're delighted to have this powerhouse author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put him in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support writers like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his wonderful book. The links are below this interview. Corey, great to see you here today on Spotlight.
Great to see you, Logan. Thanks for having me.
This is a great book. It has to do with human behavior and morality. And I think these are topics you're well versed in, considering you're a practicing attorney as well as a novelist now, right?
That is true. I do have occasion to have an up close and personal view as to those issues. Quite often in my profession. Yes, that's
Exactly.
correct.
Sometimes aberrant human behavior and sometimes an absence of morality, I'm sure. Tell me a
At
little
times.
bit, or tell the folks at home, an overview of what your book is about, The Thanks You Get.
Thanks, Logan. I appreciate the opportunity. So, as you quite aptly described at the outset, it is a book that does examine really the driving forces behind people's behaviors, right? At its essence, my protagonist is presented with certain situations in his life as he is ascending the corporate ladder that cause him to make decisions at certain critical points as to whether or not to do the right thing, right, in terms of what that means to him. And so it's an exploration and a journey as to his kind of process in making those decisions and the people that he comes in contact with as he does so. The book at its core really does, I'm hoping it causes the reader to question whether or not there really is such a thing as coincidence also, or whether or not things are, there is kind of a pattern to life and whether things are destined to happen. And it also explores kind of the theme of writing the interconnectedness between people as he experiences throughout his journey in the book. There are times when he comes in contact with friends from his past, and then new friends and establishes new relationships, and certain things are put in his pathway that cause him to, really kind of think about, really the reasons, why people are put in his path, and so he develops relationships with the people he comes across during the course of his professional journey that cause him to establish relationships that extend far beyond, the professional. And at the time that he's making decisions, I don't think he realizes that these things are happening, right?
Mm.
So the book really kind of examines the relationships that we develop over time as well, and really, really kind of the importance of families, not just biological, but the families that we establish, during our journeys through life. So yeah, I mean, it's a really a book that causes you to question, your whether or not to do the right thing, as well as explore a lot of other different themes as well. The notion of family, what that really means, the notion of whether or not there's such a thing as coincidence versus destiny, that kind of those types of things as well.
Do you believe in coincidence?
Well, there was a point in my time in life when I did, until certain things started happening in my own life that that caused me to question that concept. Right? I mean, there are certain things that happen that caused me to look back and say, "Hey, that was meant to happen."
Yeah,
Things that I kind of lean in the direction of that things happen for a reason. Um,
exactly.
yeah.
You're an agnostic when it comes to coincidence.
That's
Basically,
right.
that's
That's
it.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
What do you mean by the title, The Thanks You Get? Explain that for the folks at home.
Well, I took the title really based upon an encounter that occurs, with our protagonist, Hank Goodman. There's a very specific incident that occurs in the book, kind of early on, where he is, thinking that, really he will be fulfilled by virtue of pursuing an opportunity that, turns out not to be, something that unfolds in the way that he wants. But yet, he's sent down a certain path by virtue of a decision that he makes that really puts him on a pathway towards a different opportunity and a different kind of set of goals. At the end of which, I think he ultimately, comes to realize and becomes introspective and concludes that that was really the path that was meant for him. And that there's a sense of gratitude kind of in arriving at that point of understanding. So it's really it's the thanks you get, right? It's not maybe not the one that you would hope for in the beginning, but ultimately it's the one that you're grateful nonetheless because of the path that you ultimately end up going down. So yeah.
That's the thanks you get. I get it. Yep, it's a great title. It catches your eye. It catches your attention. Was there a section or a chapter or a scene in the book that when you were writing it, you're like, gosh, this is really good. I love it. Is there a favorite part of the book?
There is actually, now that you mention it, toward the beginning of the book, and this is actually how the book became a book, actually. The first two chapters of the book, chapters 1 and 2, really began as a short story. If you read those two chapters, they could be kind of a self-contained story in and of themselves. Really they are the kind of the catalyst that sets in motion kind of the rest of the events that occur in the book, both in the future and causing you to kind of look back in the past. I wrote the two chapters, as I said, as a short story. And my process is whenever I write a short story, and I've written several of them, I share them with different people and really ask for their honest feedback as to whether or not there's something there or not. Those two chapters I gave to my sister. She read them, and at the end of reading them, she said, "So what happens next?" and the way that those two chapters do end, it does cause the reader. I can understand why she would say that, but I took that as kind of like an internal kind of challenge to me to explore that notion of what does happen next, and thus it set me on the path to writing my outline and developing the characters that much more, and then ultimately, writing the book. So I'd say those first couple chapters are probably my favorite because they could stand alone as a story in and of themselves, but as we can see, after having read it, it does provide a foundation for something much more. So I'm hoping the reader will maybe take a look at those first two chapters just to see what I'm talking about.
Absolutely. Well, kudos to your sister for prodding you on to continue the story. We're glad you did. Have you envisioned this perhaps as a movie or a TV series?
Potentially, I do think that it does somewhat lend itself to that based upon kind of the way the story develops and the different location at which it develops. It is set in South Florida and Miami, so those folks from South Florida will recognize certain landmarks and things that I set out within the book in terms of location. But yeah, I do think that it might lend itself to that. It's the characters are very interesting people. They each have their own set of issues and personalities that they're grappling with, especially my main characters, Hank Goodman, Benjamin Beasley, Barnaby Beasley, and Sonia Santa Maria. They're all really, really interesting characters in and of themselves, in my humble opinion.
I think they'd be great characters, very compelling characters. Who would you cast as Hank?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I think there are a number of actors that could really play the role very well. Maybe John David Washington, Denzel Washington's son, is a possibility. He's actually a really good actor. John Boyega, who was in the most recent Star Wars trilogy. Perhaps Coleman Domingo, who was in the movie that he's been nominated for an Oscar now for Rustin. He might be a good Hank Goodman as well. So,
well, I think those are three great choices, and you're picking from the creme de la creme, which I think is important too. And I think they would be spectacular in the role of Hank for sure. Now, I know as an attorney, you do some writing, you do some briefs, you do petitions, you do memos and all of that. Do you have to like switch your brain around when it goes from writing legalese to writing humanese?
It does cause me to have to do that, and happily so. I actually write as a nice kind of stress reliever and counterpoint to the writing that I do in my profession, which is very specific, very technical. Kind of taking off that kind of technical writing hat and putting on a creative writing hat is something that I look forward to, something that I wish I had more time to do these days. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I do kind of have to switch it. I just like writing anyway.
Exactly.
So it's it's a nice kind of a thing to be able to do. And it's a nice kind of stress reliever for me to be able to do something that I like to do and do reasonably well, and just kind of channel it in a different direction. So
yeah, it's a fun place to live, and the fantasies and the imaginary worlds that you create in your mind. They're limitless, as opposed to the narrow structure in many cases of writing a legal document, I'm sure. And every time you write heretofore in your manuscript, you're like, no, get that out of my lexicon. I can't use it.
That's right.
One of the questions you raise in your book is whether people are naturally inclined to do the right thing. Do you think they are? And what insights or conclusions do you hope the readers get?
Well, I think people probably are. Although, I must admit, and this is something that you can kind of see through the book, that that there's something to be said for nurture as well.
Yeah.
Because you no matter how kind of predisposed you are, your environment has a significant impact on in the decisions you make, the person you become. So yeah, while I do think people are naturally inclined, I do think that that environment also has a significant impact on what how the person of someone becomes ultimately, right? So yeah.
I think left to their own devices, people would be animals. Really, if you think about it, if you think about like the line at the Golden Corral, if we weren't told you had to wait online, people would be like charging for the food. But we become socialized, we become civilized, we become disciplined, we become punished until we realize that there has to be a correct order, and there is good in following that order. That's the very cynical take. Very
interesting. Yeah, no, that is a view. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But like I said, think about it the next time you're online at a buffet, and you want to get to the shrimp or the crab leg.
That may be why I try to stay away from them. Maybe.
Exactly. That's a good reason to stay away from a buffet. And your readers, what do you hope they take away from it all?
Well, I really do hope that they take away, a really kind of good sense of, whether or not they themselves kind of look inward and kind of question what type of person they are based upon kind of the decisions that people make within the book, right? My protagonist is one that does trend towards a person that does the right thing. Although there are certain points during the course of the book where that you kind of left to question certain motives of him even. Right. I don't think any one person is all one thing. Right. We're all,
and that's what makes a character interesting, right?
That's right. Yeah. We're all complex human beings, but I hope that the reader kind of steps back and examines themselves and try to maybe ask the question, but what I have done in that situation.
Exactly.
Right? So I'm hoping they are able to kind of take that away and to hopefully just enjoy a good read at the end of the day, because I've hoped that I've tried to that develop characters that are interesting, and that develop the plot line that's also interesting. the question of whether or not there is such a thing as coincidence is one that I've, kind of pondered quite often in my lifetime. And this is a book that also, I hope, ask the reader to ponder that same question as well, and come down on the side, whatever side they end up, right, in terms of that issue. But it is a very interesting question.
Absolutely. Lots of interesting questions raised in the book, introspectively and also metaphysically. I think they're great questions that people will wonder, what would I do in that situation? And like you said, they'll just be entertained because this is a gripping book. Corey Collins has written an amazing book. It's called The Thanks You Get. It takes a deep dive into the depths of human behavior and the essence of our moral and immoral choices. Excellent book. Highly recommended. Corey, thanks so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thanks for having me, Logan.
My pleasure. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.